Hey, so welcome back to the Paralyzed and Prosperous podcast, where we get real nostalgia. We out here talking about beepers. I'm sure that, well, some of our younger listeners don't even know what a beeper is. My guy MJ in the background right now, I know he don't even know what a beeper is. So, hey, welcome back
Hey,
to the Paralyzed and Prosperous podcast, y'all.
hey, you got to put them on, man. Those are the golden years, bro. Like that's when everything started. And for those that can't see the podcast and is just listening, DJ has this little mic. It's not so little. As he has this. Uh, I don't know how big you think that is, man.
It's
Shoot,
a brick.
It's a
it's
brick.
a,
I didn't want to
it's
say
a,
it, but my sister came out the car and was just like,
It's
"Yes,
a
brick."
brick.
So he got a brick hanging on his shirt as a mic, and he was like, "Yo, do y'all think this is right before we got on? Do you think it's pulling on my show?" I was like, "Bro, it does that every podcast. Like,
always
what
do
are you
it.
talking about? Why are you asking now? Like, we've been months into it, bro."
Hey,
Yeah,
I'm just noticing some stuff. Before I go on the podcast, I realized my eyebrows are uneven. I'm just noticing some stuff today, just details. just details.
That's wild.
Hey, talk to me, y'all. How y'all doing on this Memorial Day?
I'm good. I'm
Mm.
good. Blessed by the best. I will never, ever, ever, ever in my life tell you otherwise, man. God is good, man. And I don't say that. I don't say that. I sometimes I think people think I'm just saying that just to say. I'm literally grateful. You got to understand. I'm about to be 47 years old at the end of this at the end of this summer. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful. There was a time in my life that I didn't think I was gonna make it. I didn't even know what that looked like, right? Some of us has the
Mhm.
vision of seeing like, yo, when I get old, and those was never conversation, DJ. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, anytime I wake up and I get to do what I do, like, yo, believe it or not, a lot of work, we get in stretch position to do this, do that, but blessed to be in that position. So, I'm good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hello, like, talk to me. How you doing?
Yeah, I am good. We, in the spirit of continuing with the transparency, your girl just woke up from a nap, okay? And I needed that nap, so I'm good.
Really?
I
Really?
Was
am.
it an
I'm
hour
still
nap,
a little bit.
30 minutes?
Okay, so y'all, my
Did you go
homegirl,
to
she
sleep, sleep?
roasts me. I
Mm-hmm.
go to sleep, sleep, and most
Slumber.
times it's not. Oh, I'm just a little tired. I'm gonna plan this 30-minute nap. No, I'm out of here. Like I'm
Yeah.
in another world for a
Nah.
while. And so I'm a little bit groggy still, but that's not good. I'm here. I'm grateful. I'm enjoying Memorial Day weekend. And yeah, it's been good. It's been good. It's been I always struggle a little bit with that challenge of do I rest or do I work? Do I rest or do I work? Do I rest a whole lot and work a little bit? Or do I work a lot and you know what I'm saying? Because there's always something to do. So I opted for rest. And I'm happy I did.
Good.
Well, I feel like, hey, you gotta, as you get on this, sometimes you gotta choose rest. You gotta choose it. You can't choose
Absolutely.
violence. So, hey,
I'm gonna choose violence.
so check this out. I'm just now leaving, Dallas, and I was with one of my brothers, right? It's my brother. But the thing about it is, he's my brother. But we were completely just like me and Megan, which I understand why this is Megan is also my best friend. And those who don't know who Megan is on the podcast, that's my girlfriend.
That's his
But again,
boo. Hey
that's
Megan.
my
Soon,
we don't use the word
soon to
boo.
be, soon to be wife. You know what I'm saying?
Talk
Soon to be
talk
wife.
to him. Tell him.
Soon to
Hey,
be
we
wife.
definitely about it.
Yeah,
Yes,
nah.
sir. So
Yeah, soon to be wife. We definitely can't wait.
I can't wait either, man. I can't wait. So y'all stay tuned for that. But yeah, so I was down there, man, and I'm with my guy, and he's a real blunt fellow. Like probably the most blunt person you'll ever meet. And he would always tells me the things that how can I put it? He doesn't sugarcoat anything. He tells me the things that he doesn't like about me. Now he does preface it with the things like, yo, bro, you feel me? Like I understand there's a lot of things that you're killing the game when it comes down to your consistency, your efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. But there's little things like the way you move with people, the way you ask questions, the way you blah blah blah, that there are ways that I can do it better, if that makes sense. Like for instance, when I'm starting the conversation, I just ask questions. You know what I'm saying? So I'll ask you 3 or 4 questions, and then I'll start the conversation. So when you look at that on the outside looking in, that can be annoying. You get what I'm saying?
Mm.
But for me, it's just like I'm trying to start that conversation. But with me hearing that, I can articulate that a bit different, right? So I
Yeah.
say all that to say, we always talk about it, bro, but I feel like it's very imperative to just have those people in your life that's not just there to talk to you about what you want to hear. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? It helps you
Mhm.
understand. But, even with him, there's things that he says that are just not true, and we talk those out. But there's things that he says that are true, and I'm able to be like, okay, boom. I'll be able to change those things with hearing that. You know what I'm saying?
But you love them and you trust them, and that's why the space is safe because even when it's not true, it's not offensive. It's more like yo, nah, like let's iron that out, and that's everybody needs that, man. But I'll be honest with you, it's not. I don't think it's a. I don't think that's. I wouldn't call that's the wrong way of doing it. I just
Mhm.
think you need to know who you do it with.
That's most definitely. Oh, that's facts.
Right? Like that's how you function. That's how you're wired.
Yeah.
I don't think you should think like that's a bad thing. My man probably sees it as a bad thing because he's probably wired a different way. So it gets him annoying cool. So I think the biggest thing that I've learned and I'm always in people relationship learning, right? I love relationship. I'm intrigued with going into a place and just kind of cultivating a relationship where people feel safe. They're like, yo, Jorge, like, like whatever that is. But you got to be careful not to lose yourself because then you're
Most
just
definitely.
playing a role, right? Then you're just
Mhm.
playing a role. And so I was just listening to something right now, and they were talking about like, yo, being authentic is where the sauce is at, and and
Hmm.
and being yourself 100% unapologetic is so big. You just got to know that when I do go into a room, I'm not here to offend people. That's not. I'm not trying. Being myself is not me being offensive. So it depends who I'm speaking to. So I think it's just a matter of what room you in, who are you, and if you understand this about someone, then it's like okay, let me rephrase this in a different way and meet you
Yeah,
where you at. I think that makes the person a lot more dope without compromising themselves. Because I don't think
definitely.
it's wrong. I just think certain people, we receive things differently.
And I think,
Absolutely.
and I want to reiterate that I guess more talking about life and business in these conversations. It was more of a life and business because I'll do in business. I'm going to continue doing that. Don't get me wrong, but there's certain things that but there's certain things that in life that I let kind of leak
Mhm.
over to business, and there's certain things that's all right, but there's a lot of stuff where I need to separate those things, right? If I'm gonna have a real conversation in real life, I don't need to be going asking questions. I need to be figuring out the situation, looking at the person, see what they're doing, and talk to them about that. You know what
But
I'm saying?
that's your
Talk to them about
process. But that's your process, though. I don't.
but
Yeah.
I
it
really
wasn't.
feel
But the thing,
even if it's
it
real
wasn't.
life, that's your process. Because the reason
Yep.
you're asking questions because there's no clarity in front of you. So for you to be able to move forward into that conversation, it's like, yo, let
Mhm.
me just ask you this before I assume. So I don't even think like I don't know. We could go
I
back and
receive it.
forth
I
on this.
receive it.
I just put him in front of me because I'm be like, bro, what is it that is so offensive for him asking you a question? That's the first
Mhm.
because to me, I've gotten in a space in personal and professional development that the worst thing you could do is have assumptions.
No facts.
Period. So when you start with
Mhm.
a question, I'm not gonna go into this assuming. I'm just want to be clear. Is this what you mean? Is this what you want? Is this like, oh, do you think that and I'll ask you a question, like, do you think I should be right? All that is just clarity, and that becomes the catalyst to an amazing conversation, in my opinion, because you're
Yeah.
asking my
I
opinion,
feel it.
you're asking my opinion, you're asking my take. You're not telling me, you're not pointing fingers, you're not assuming, which I think that would be more offensive to your average individual than just asking questions. So we might have to get your brother to get on the podcast, and
Hey,
we're gonna
we might have to. We might have
avoid this battle.
to. We
Yeah, I've
might
been
have
in
to.
those situations. I'm a little bit more straightforward, right? Like, for those of you that approach me with stuff, please don't take me on a scenic route with your storytelling. Just let's be courteous. Hey, what's up, girl? How you doing? And then meat and potatoes, y'all. Like, get straight to it, right? I'm gonna zone out somewhere on your scenic route of the story that you take me on. So I prefer and I'm not trying to be ugly. I just know there's some people that like they're long storytellers and they're like, a couple seasons have passed and we're at Christmas and they still haven't gotten to the point. So for my sake, it literally helps me to show up as my best self if you just get to the point with me.
Yeah.
However, a lot of people don't like that. They don't like the directness. They don't like the questions. And I've been in situations where I have started with questions, and I've just had to let people know, like, hey, I'm just asking for clarity because I want to make sure I'm understanding like where you're coming from or what we're talking about.
Right.
And
Right.
that normally helps
Yeah.
diffuse it where
Yeah.
people don't feel so like, you're like attacking me with questions. But he's right. Where he's right. That's how I process information is to ask those questions. And so I think you can kind of be like cutting yourself short when you don't do the thing that helps you
Ask a
function the
specific
way you
question.
function best.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So let me ask y'all this, and this kind of goes into our topic today. Say that there's somebody in a setting where you trust and love, right? And they tell you something where, okay, boom, you've seen it for yourself that you might need a shift or pivot, right? And it's
Hmm.
something that whether that's an attitude shift, whether that's how you move in your life, whether that's moving with other people. I guess my
Hmm.
question to you is, when is the point where you take that and then you make the shift? Like, when is the point that if somebody tells you something, you take it for what it is, and you make that shift?
You gotta personally like listen, man. Right? Okay. Let's take a step back because I think number one, you got to understand who you are first,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I believe that I'm always huge. Like I'm in a season, accountability. I cannot allow anybody else to dictate how I move, how I feel, what I think. You could suggest, you could add, you could collab with me, right? But I can't be a carbon copy of somebody else. Does that make sense? I just
100%.
so number one, like I know that's my truth. I'm so relationable. I'll get caught up in the environment of certain things because I love team. Y'all know me. I prefer to get on a call and do this. That's just me. Y'all both are like, bro, like we gotta go do XYZ. We'll hit you later. I'm like, bro, can we do it together? Like, can we kumbaya? Like, if we were living together, like in the same city, I'll be over some of y'all house. Like I'll be on your house. Like, yo, like what we doing? And matter of fact, I'll respect because I don't like people coming to my house like that. So I'll be like, yo, can we meet? But I'll be trying to meet with people, right? I'll be trying to meet with
Yeah.
people. So, like, that's number one. Like, you just got to understand that about yourself, right? And so I believe that there's a time that you should take. Number one, going back to what you just said. What was the first statement I said to you? If you have somebody you trust and love, right? And it's an environment that is safe, their receipts shows that their best interest is you. That takes with times. That takes with us going through certain journeys, whether it's professional, personal, or even both. Now I know that this person intentions is heart posture is all about Jorge, right? Team
Mm-hmm.
us, team Jorge, team us winning, team yo. Listen, so once I understand who that person is, and that person gives me a suggestion, and I could now, mind you, that doesn't mean because that person I love them and they got receipts. You still got to do the diligent. You have to be diligent enough to go back and observe that for yourself. Okay,
Right.
where is it? Like, is like you kind of like thinking about what he said, and you made a quick decision. I'm like, yo, he's right. Like blase blase. I have a different opinion of that, right?
Well,
Let me
just
finish this.
before you go
I
ahead.
don't
I'm
want to
sorry.
lose my thought.
Yeah, I want you to lose the thought.
But what I'm saying, and I'll let you get back to it. But what I'm saying is this: if you have that individual, you still got to go back. You get that. You take that suggestion. Let's call it a suggestion, right? That's all it is. And you're gonna dissect it. I have literally maybe 2 to 4 people around me that I adore. Y'all being two of them, right? Regardless if Jorge likes what he's hearing or not, I know where your heart is at. I know it's not coming sideways.
Yeah.
I have 1 or 2 other individuals, including my wife, right? Like these, I have a small little knit group of individuals that always I have allowed the open door for them to come and suggest, to pull my cards, to whatever it is. And the reason that that's there is because I trust those individuals. When that comes, I dissect what they're talking about, and it's my job to really prove, like research, like yo, you know what, Jorge, it's right. Like after me, put my emotion aside. The receipts that
Hmm.
show in the last four events or the last four situation, you are a little emotional. You do go into certain situation um blindsided, right? You make decisions too quick, right? Whatever that is. And the truth will resonate because it comes from someone else. Now, mind you, on a different note, I have
Mhm.
many people that in the past have given me suggestions and want me to pivot and want me to, tell me like, yo, that's not it. And when I like number one, like I'm looking at you like, okay, so like what gives you the authority to, and mind you, I open minded because it could be somebody with love and all that. But
Yeah, fact.
if that person is talking to me about finances, but you're broke, if that
Mhm.
person is talking to me about becoming a speaker, but I've done this, I'm exceeded, and not to be on some like, oh, y'all can't hear y'all, because I could always learn from somebody.
Hmm.
I have to be careful with what information I'm receiving at that point, and not saying that I'm just gonna dun you off and not pay attention to you, because that's not my style either. Because God will speak to you through people, through situations, through things, and so you better be careful that God might be talking to you through somebody that it's not of your circle, because it needs to be differently. So you'll be open minded, but again, what is that process for yourself to dissect? Because
Right.
I am a huge believer of pivot. You should pivot, but you should only pivot when it's the time right. And when is the time right? It's depending on what the situation is and where you are with that situation, if that makes sense.
I
Mhm.
I 100% agree.
But go
100%
back
agree.
to go back to
And
what you was going to talk about.
I guess for me, what I wanted to, I should have prefaced this because you said again, we got to go back to knowing who you are. For me, in these situations, if I see it
Mhm.
for myself before somebody tells me, and just because I'm a spiritual person, I take that as God's confirmation. So in this situation, I
Mhm.
seen that. Okay, I seen the way. Okay, for instance, I go up to somebody random. I'm asking a couple questions, trying to get to that point of the conversation. But within my questions, maybe 4 to 5, they get annoyed. I can see it in their face. Okay, so I start shifting to maybe asking one or two questions before I get to that conversation, and that worked. So when we got to this conversation, it's like, okay, I've already seen that maybe I do ask a bit too many questions before I start the conversation. But that's only in the personal side of life. In the business side of life, there's no way I'm stopping that because people love that, number one, and number two, that's how I get clarity. But in life, I wouldn't say that it always gives me clarity, but it does help me start a conversation. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I'm clear.
Well, I feel like questions are a part of the conversation, though. Questions aren't separate from the conversation. It may just be the catalyst to opening up the floodgates of conversation, so to
Agreed.
speak. Um, and I would say, just because someone you are perceiving that you think they're getting annoyed, that may mean you're asking the right questions and you
Hmm.
maybe don't
That's
need to
good.
let off the
That's
gas.
good.
You know
That's
what I'm
good.
Now
saying?
you on to something.
Because
That's good.
because what I've experienced is it's fine and dandy for people. They want to hang, they want to have conversation, whatever, until you start asking questions that touch sensitive parts. Sometimes it's unhealed parts of them. Sometimes it's uncovering the deception that they were coming to you with.
Oh, let's
Mm,
So
that's huge.
let's keep it 100, because not everybody they'll be around you hovering. Not everybody means the best for you. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? They can mean the best in one season, and that can change in the next season.
yes.
And so when I have someone coming to me with information, advice, again, like Jorge said, I have real short list of people that I'm gonna let speak into my life, and I'm gonna keep it 100. One of them I pay. That's my therapist. I pay her.
That's
I'm gonna
facts.
keep it 100. I pay her.
That's
She
facts.
asked me. She was like, "Oh, well, you have people that love you. You have people that tell you the truth. Why are you here?" This is when we first started working together. "Why are you here with me?" I said, "Because you are really gonna tell me the truth.
One
You
hundred
don't
percent.
care about my like she care about my feelings, but you don't care about my feelings. You're committed to my freedom. You're committed to my mental and spiritual and emotional health. So I'm gonna pay you, and we're gonna have these honest conversations. And I'm gonna cry and be ugly, but we're gonna have these honest conversations." And staying on that topic, little by little, she asked questions, and I'd be like, "I don't really want to go there. I don't really want to talk about it." And next thing you know, I was snot nosing on the couch. You know what I'm saying? My couch, because we
Right.
did virtual sessions. Exactly. But snot nosing on the couch. So I don't think, you letting up on the questions necessarily is the best approach. I do think what Jorge said is correct. Is that you do kind of have to know who you're talking to, but I think it's very beneficial for all of us to be very discerning and watchful. I've had someone I was close to, and I think I shared a piece of the story in a previous episode about like, sis came to me on some, I don't like that when I call you, you have, go to answers for me in terms of like helping me fix the situation. I just want you to like listen.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So she didn't want me asking questions. She just wanted me to listen. And I
Hmm.
told her very lovingly, not because I did not love her, not because I wasn't invested in her success, but I knew myself. Sis, I am not the person for you to call if you just want me to stay on the phone with you for an hour while you verbally throw up and then not change the situation and then call me the next day and then 2 days later and then 3 days later. The stories, the themes, the habits, the general generational curses, all that's the same. You're not working on any of that because you don't want to do the work. You just want to be seen and heard. So
100%.
I no, you can't come to me on that.
You should have
Yeah.
you should have slide her the number of your therapy. Like, listen, there's a group.
but no, because there's a
Nah,
different level.
but it's
No, let
for
me keep it
real,
a
because
hundred.
that's
Let
because
me keep
even
no
then,
no no.
even then, right? You pay somebody, they're not just gonna listen to you, right? They're gonna tell you what.
But Jorge, you got to realize the point was she didn't want to fix it.
Oh
She
no, I
wanted to
got
be
the point.
affirmed.
Yeah.
She wanted to be affirmed in her pain.
Hmm.
So she most definitely wasn't going to pay no therapist to talk to her
I
because she
know
doesn't
that.
want to fix it.
I was being sarcastic with
You know what I'm saying? I
because
got
she
you.
was coming at you like, oh, you just gonna sit there and listen? Nah, baby girl, I
Yeah.
don't got the time
and
for that.
even said, I wish you were like this other person. But when I look at the fruit of this other person's life, it's
Mm,
giving dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's fact. That's
So
fact.
in terms of like people coming to me with information or like, advice or whatever, I am maturing. I have not perfected this, but I am definitely getting better about putting it through a strainer. It got to go
Right.
through filters, right? Sure, I because I know you, I genuinely believe that you have my best interest, but I want to know where's this coming from, because you could have my best
Right.
interest but something could have happened and you may misinterpret something that's happening in my life and now you're coming to me in the spirit of jealousy,
Yeah.
or maybe your baby daddy broke up with you and now you angry and so you saying stuff to me that it ain't have to do to me. It didn't have
Right.
anything to do with
Right.
me, but you taking it
Right.
out, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think you have to discern and like filter, and then yeah, real talk, on a spiritual standpoint, there are gonna be people that come that seem like they are lovey-dovey and they are sent of the enemy. They are trying to set you up for downfall. So when it
Right.
comes to taking advice and pivoting from that advice, you take it, you put it through the filter, whatever your measurements are to discern if it's the right thing to apply to or not, go through that process.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree, especially because there's times where when people say stuff, that it might not apply to you whatsoever. Period. And even
Mhm.
you know, I'm not even going to go into that, but there's times like that. Too. So it really does go back to knowing yourself. And with me knowing myself, I always, like Jorge said, I take back, I look at the analytics, and I see if this even needs to change, and then I proceed to change it if it does. If it doesn't, I'm going on with my life. You
But
know what
I
I'm
want to
saying?
put an emphasis. I want to put an emphasis on something because something you said was very good. You had identified that as a place of growth in yourself first
Yeah, that's what it was. That's
before
what it was.
somebody came and said, "Here's this random thing you need to work on." You had already been like, "Maybe I need to
Mm,
consider pivot, acting a little different in this space." So it was that self awareness and like you being considerate of that, and even open to that, and then like you said, that confirmation coming in. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Which probably
yeah.
helped you not be offended by it because you were already examining it within yourself.
Right. Right.
So let me real quick, right? Because as I'm sitting here, you guys know we always talk about, the personal and professional development in that same notion, like motion, right? Like that same idea. Like, how do we, like, we talked about personal,
Hmm.
in on a personal space within ourselves, but what does that look like? When you're transitioning, or when we're talking about in business, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I believe that there's some of us are in two spaces, right? You have those individuals that are moving from that paralyzed mindset, and it's like going back to what you said, like, you've acknowledged there's something there that needs to be worked on,
Mhm.
and mind you, then it gets confirmed or whatever the story is. So it obviously aligns with you. And if you're a spiritual individual, man, that might be God tugging on your shirt, like, listen, work on that, right? But as you stand in as a either an entrepreneur or organization, like what does that look like, right? Like, DJ, I know you work with a lot of organizations. You help with the marketing. You help with, and I know that a lot of marketing comes because they need to pivot. There's
Right.
a pivot that they're seeking. Entrepreneurship. Even me being, in the industry, shout out to MVP's Barbershop. 20 years next year, man. Like, listen, that's just it's huge for me. But you know how many pivots I had to do? I remember, like for example, man, I was telling somebody, I don't know if I share this on the podcast, but I remember when there was a season, Jorge would drive up in front of his barbershop. I had 11 barbers, and I would take like at least 6 or 7 barbers, put them in my car, go for a blunt ride, smoke, and then drop them back off at my barbershop.
Wow. Wow.
Some customers have some crazy designs, didn't they?
Man.
I
It was
I
high
don't know
speed.
because I didn't stay there to even see. I was out,
Mhm.
right? But imagine if I would have never understood the pivot of
Hmm.
Mhm.
not only personal, business. I was just talking to a client. You guys know that, I've been in the shop lately, and some I was talking to a client, and the client was just like, "Bro, y'all been here for 20 years?" Like, yeah. He's like, "Y'all doing something right," and
Hmm.
he was just really blown away how we were able to go post COVID, through everything, and as I reflect after 20 years, I personally had to pivot not only professionally, personal and professionally, because I would have never
Mhm.
been able to evolve to the business owner that I am right now, the entrepreneur that I am right now. I'm going to school for organizational development and psychology, right? Like, think about what that is. And
Mhm.
I just, my question to you guys, like, if somebody's listening right now and they're stuck in the midst of like Jorge doing some foolishness, or maybe not at that level, maybe they're in a certain position and they're just not getting the results they need. Like, what is that for? Like, how would you position yourself in a way to, what are the 2 steps, 3 steps? What that is for you? I don't know if I asked the
Mhm.
So
question right.
no, you
Yeah.
definitely asked right. Now I'm gonna let you go in on this, but real quick to
Yeah.
preface this, when it comes down to pivoting and shifting, and we know this as a team. I want to preface one thing before you pivot and shift. You have to, again, we already talked about the personal side, but you have to know who you are in business too, because you have to know what your mission statement is. You have to know what your morals and ethics are, or you're not, or your shift is going to look more like a leap, if that makes sense. So, for instance,
Mhm.
Adela, I'm gonna let you go ahead and kind of talk about this subject first, and I'm gonna hop back
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, so I kind of brought this up to you guys about this idea of pivoting. I saw there's a young lady that I follow on Instagram, brilliant creator, and she announced that after however many years of business, it's been a while, she decided to shut down. Like, she was like,
Mm,
"I'm good," like, I'm shutting, and she said she's shutting everything down. So at that
wow.
point, she'll just have some digital products available, and even those are only going to last for a while. And she recognized in herself, like, I'm exhausted. I'm burned out. I've given tons of myself to many clients over the years. And now it's time for me to pivot and focus a little bit more on family and on passion projects and hobbies. And so I thought that's so interesting because, especially when it comes to business and entrepreneurship, it's always go, 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 build, 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 thrive, grow, multiply, scale, all the buzzwords, right? And this young lady decided, no, I'm good. I've done my contribution in what it looks like in this particular framework, and now I'm gonna take some time off. And there were plenty of people in the comments like congratulating her and just like, oh man, I've been thinking about this too. And it really stood out to me about knowing when it's time
Mhm.
to make a pivot. So I think in a personal, I think it applies to personal and business, but
I
I
think
would say
they're tied
from
in
a
together, though,
personal,
right? They're tied in
yeah,
together.
absolutely, they're definitely tied in together. But in this place of, like, I guess on a personal, like who you are as a person, when you get to the point that you are burned out and no longer enjoying it, definitely a good sign that you might want to consider doing some pivots, right?
Mm,
I think that's the first thing, right? But that goes back
right.
to what we talked about as self-awareness, because self-awareness is bigger than like, oh, I like to complete projects in this type of way. Self awareness is deeply tied into self care, which is saying, I'm exhausted and I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel and I feel like I'm running to and fro and, launching programs every 6 months or every 3 months. It's time to rest. And so I think identifying when you are burned out and being very honest about your self care. I also think the second thing, if not, maybe I should have started with this first, but being humble enough to really take some time and ask yourself questions. It was funny because we started talking about, asking questions of other people, but you have to ask yourself questions about, and I've kind of talked about this before, right? Like, what are the goals? Have the goals changed? Has the post changed? Is this truly in alignment, or am I doing something just to do it? And I think it's easy for us to get caught up in the habit of being on the go and feeling like we got to perform, and like, especially when it comes to the arena of like social media. It seems like some of the biggest creators are on magazine covers, and you got conferences all the time, or you're being invited to talk shows, or you're on panels. That gets exhausting. You have to be very honest with yourself about what it is you need in that season. So I think those are two very, very big ones. Another one I think is, honestly, if it's just not working. If you're beating your head against the wall and it's been months, years, for some people, and you're not getting the results that you want, does that mean you need to necessarily shut everything down? No, but it's
Mhm.
can be a great indicator that you need to make a pivot.
Yeah.
And that's where you bring in like teams, you hire consultants, people that understand and can read data if you're not great at reading the analytics and data, and figure out, okay, what is it going to take to make a pivot? And actually, what do you want that pivot to look like?
Yeah.
Right,
Does
right.
that pivot
What you,
mean you're generating more income? Does that pivot mean you have more followers? Does that pivot
sure.
mean you're completely rebranding and decided you want your business to, serve a completely different mission?
That's
So I
huge.
think, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, again, going back into like the humility tip, it takes humility to say, oh yeah, this ain't working.
Yeah,
Right?
it does.
Because sometimes
It
it
does.
feels good to be like, oh yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a business. I
Yeah.
own this. I run this. I have 3 locations. I have 40 employees. Yeah, that kind of like makes you feel good to be able to say that. But
Right.
if you're hitting the wall and you're not actually creating the effect that you originally set out to do in your business, if you're not actually helping the people you said you wanted to help, it may be time for a pivot, whether that be strategy or just full blown makeover.
No, that's crazy. If you really think about it, there's many different types of pivots and shifts. It's crazy, but they almost all
Absolutely.
come back to what you just
That's
said.
that's why
And
I wanted to ask, like, because I don't, we everybody's in so many different layers, and so if they listening to it, I just want them to understand a pivot is not a bad thing. And I think Adelaide, and
No.
I'll let you jump into it right now, DJ. My apologies, but I just want people to understand that it that's not a bad thing, and that's just going back to what
Mm-mm.
Adelaide saying. Like, I pivot many times. I'm not. I don't give up. I'll be honest with you. That's not in my blood. I don't. That's not it. We're not shutting down, but we are gonna pivot because whatever we have been doing is not working. We either not
mhm,
getting the right finances, like that's an indicator. Like if you're running business and your money's not looking right, there's something going wrong. There's the disconnect. You have to do a
Mm-hmm.
pivot in there. If you have a what is it? What you call it when there's a quick turnaround on your hiring, and there's a word for that,
Turnover.
uh,
turnover.
turnover rate.
Like if your turnover rate it's on a constant, there's you need a pivot within your inside your organization. So I just want them, DJ, go ahead. I just want them to kind of understand that pivot is not a bad thing.
Oh yeah,
And it's just whatever is true to you. Whatever, and that's going back to the questions that
Mm-hmm.
Alan was talking about. You gotta ask yourself these questions.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And let me say this.
And like,
Sorry,
like
DJ.
that.
We keep
Oh yeah.
cutting you out. We keep cutting you out.
DJ, you gotta be a great
But I want
DJ.
to. I had to
Listen,
say this
you gotta know I'm
because
gonna put my
Jorge.
foot in the air and I'm gonna say what I need to say. You DJ, because you know me and
Cause
Alala.
y'all gonna talk. I be in the background quiet. I'm gonna toot and
But I
skirt
gotta
up in
learn
there.
too. You know what I'm
Skirt.
saying? I gotta tell our people. I gotta be in here learning too. You know what I'm saying? What am I doing
No,
out
no,
here not
no.
learning from
But
this
I
great
I
information y'all
wanted
talking about?
I wanted to say this because Jorge brought up this very good point, especially when it comes to turnover. So a lot of
Mhm,
you guys have employees, or you might not even own a business. Maybe you are just in leadership within the company that you work for. If you
mhm,
have a high turnover rate, you need to be asking different questions.
Yes.
And what I have seen, I've worked at companies that had a high turnover rate. And I will tell you, one of the biggest things that I have seen from upper management is they refuse to accept the actual information for what it was.
Mm,
They would interpret a high turnover rate, because we're talking about pivots, right? They would interpret a high turnover rate to mean they hired the wrong people and that management were doing their job to enforce the rules. Okay. That's
really?
they felt like it was a good thing, right? They felt like they were doing what needed to be done. And so don't let all the red flags, all the things be in your face, the signals that you need to pivot be in your face, and you're too prideful
No.
to make a change. Because
Mm,
one thing, let me throw this out here and I'm gonna let you talk. I'm done after this one thing. Guys, making money is a great indicator that you're doing something right, but it is not the sole indicator that you are doing something right and being successful. Because I've worked for companies, I've worked with managers, I've had the consultations of people whose systems were deeply broken. And because they made money, they thought they were successful. Meanwhile,
mm,
their employees were stressed out and
mm.
quitting because their systems did not work. And sometimes it was down to the actual technology that did not work. But because the people wanted their jobs, they figured out how to work around a broken system. But the managers or owners thought it was an indication of success because they were making money. That alone is bare minimum when you talk about success and actually being able to measure your business. Okay, I'm done, DJ. Thank you.
DJ, the rest of the podcast is yours. We're done. Like,
No, but put that even
nah,
longer,
we're
DJ.
done. You're
Nah, but
you're gonna carry the rest of the next 20 minutes. It's yours.
It's
Talk
all
to
yours.
us, DJ.
first of all, y'all, I'm not about to talk for 20 minutes. Secondly, Jorge, Jorge, I'm just going back to your point a little bit because I just again, pivots are not always made when things are going bad whatsoever.
Mhm.
Pivots are sometimes made when you understand that okay, you know who you are, you know what you do has a amazing system to it, but you're not making the money you really want to make. So then you and so I'll put it like this: this is the position I've been in. I was in a year and a half ago, and I'm finally to that point where I pivoted to understanding what I need to do. Right. So going back to that, say that you have your business, right? Okay, for me, I have marketing and branding business. We had in the past year, 2 years, we had AI, we had metaverses, we had NFTs. These are all shifts
Mm-hmm.
that I had to make, right? These are all shifts and pivots.
Mm-hmm.
For other marketing and branding businesses, they made those leaps I was talking about. They are looking at that like, okay, these are what's killing it right now. We're going to take our whole business and put the model over to this. But for me, I'm like, okay, I know who I am. I know my business and my strategies are solid. All I have to do is integrate those things. So basically, I made a pivot to those things, added it to my business instead of shifting my whole business over to those things, right?
That's
So
smart.
that shift into I guess the to 2023 really showed me okay, you take you take the good things of your business and then you add them to what can make it better, and then you grow from there. So those will be the steps that I have to a positive pivot change. But again, every pivot is not doesn't have to be because things are going bad or things are negative.
It
Yeah.
is still, but it's still considered a good pivot because
Yeah,
it's just how you're looking at it. Because a pivot, in my head, pivots are not bad at all. Whether it's
No.
something good is happening and we just want more, or if it just listen. Me and my wife, we could have an amazing season, and mind you, I'm always thinking about let's pivot. Why, bro? Like, can we get a phenomenal season? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So pivot, there's definitely, I think it's the concept of receiving that you have to be in position to always adjust, reset and adjust. And pivot to me is like an audible. You're gonna be in some situation, God, I'll be honest with you, I don't know about you, but I've been lately, and not just lately, man, it's always been happening, but I'm more aware of it now. God has
right.
put me and has literally be like, now we changing that direction.
Yep.
I don't want you to go right. I want you to go left.
Yep.
and everything in my heart wants to go right. That's where that pride kicks in. That's where what Alala was talking about, like, just being in your way, because it's like, nah, I want to go, nah, bro, take left. And so you just
Mhm.
gotta have a relationship, man. A lot of us, and I'll really, I want y'all to receive this. We have certain relationship with certain words, and and that's why you can't grow, right? Some of y'all been grinding and your ego gets hurt and you don't want to do that pivot because you think you did something wrong or you think it's a sign of failure. And it's not. It's, DJ gave you some examples. Adela gave you some examples. We've been talking about personal and professional ways of pivoting and making those adjustments. And my thing to you is just have a relationship with adjustment. Have a relationship with being all right. That's been majority of my success is because I'm all right with making last minute change. I'm all right with just pivoting. I'm all right with just like, oh, that didn't work. I'm not gonna stay on. I'm not gonna, like I've told you, like I used to
Mhm.
drive to my shop, pick up my barbers, go get high, and drop them back off. And mind you, I had teams where I remember just between you, like as we start talking about the 20 years of MVP, which stay on the lookout, guys. We are coming out with 20 lessons of business that I want to be able to share on IG, so all platforms and stuff like that. In regards for the just for the 20 years that I've been in business with the barbershop, and one of the things that I learned is that that's a lesson within itself. Is that if I didn't have the ability to pivot, I would have lost everything. And some of y'all
Mhm.
are just so stuck in your way, or just take that as a negative and take that as a sign of failure. And when you don't do that, and we just lost Adelaide, but when you don't do that, um, you know what I'm saying? You will position yourself to lose whatever it is that you could have saved. So she's doing what DJ usually does, guys. Which I don't know, Adelaide, you're doing what DJ usually does now. You're
Pulling
disappearing.
me.
You pulled a
I,
DJ.
I
It's all
literally
right.
touched
DJ does
nothing.
it every
Everything
podcast,
is
so then
plugged
you do
up,
it once
and
a
it
week.
literally just said goodbye. It
Huh?
said thanks for joining. I said I literally touched nothing, and it just cut off and said thanks for joining.
Now you gave DJ a reason to be like, yo, it just cut me off. It just
Oh
because
no.
he does it in every podcast like at least 3 times. So, but yeah, I
My
mean
bad.
that was my whole point of it, man. But any final closing thoughts, guys? In regards to just anything that's coming up, what we were talking
Mhm.
about, just talk to the people.
I would just say if you expect to have to make pivots and you expect changes to happen, it's easier to navigate them. I think sometimes it's, you get like kind of set in your ways and you're like, oh, why does this have to change now? But just expect it. Like change is good. And that's one of the things that has helped me on a personally, I like outside of business or professionalism, whatever. It's just yeah, life is all about growing and learning and being stretched and having those opportunities to change. That your entire life is that. And so if you take that same stance in your business and you welcome change to come when it's time to change, then it's easier for you. So just embrace it and be open minded and keep people around you that can help you navigate those waters as well.
DJ,
Absolutely.
Also known as book a consulting session with Jorge.
hey,
Absolutely. Hey,
let
you
him
already know you already knew that's what I was heading. Hey, make sure
DJ,
y'all
what?
check out every.
Go ahead, my brother. My bad.
I was just saying, make sure y'all check out everything. At the bottom of the podcast, you'll see our website pop up throughout the podcast. So go ahead and check that out. That's ahorgesierra.com.
Mhm.
Um, I'm saying that right, right?
Yeah,
ahorgesierra.com. So y'all see it pop up on the screen. We got some new
we're gonna have to
content
pivot
coming
on
out.
them.
We got well, y'all see a lot of content coming out. As y'all will see throughout our podcast, the podcast is getting more improved. We're adding more things. So we got a lot of things coming for the JSA brand. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on any platform at this point. And yeah, shout out to Jorge for being who he say you is as usual.
Hey, listen, shout out to y'all, man. Shout out to God. I'll be honest with you, I'm in His world, and I'm just glad to be doing what we do. One thing that I realized, and I'm gonna keep it 100 as we close this off, is just be authentic, be who you are, just be
Mhm.
yourself. Like I'm learning more and more. I'm gonna sound a certain way, I'm gonna look a certain way, I'm gonna move a certain way. And God has certified me to be able to do what He asked for me to do, and everything else will fall in place. So stop doubting yourself. Stop thinking that there's this recipe or this. Nah, you just need to get clarity. You just need, to some of y'all need to learn how to pivot, and some of y'all need to stop pivoting. I'm gonna
Mm,
be
Mm.
honest.
mm. That's a
Some of
good
y'all just
closeout.
stay
That's a
pivoting.
good closeout.
Yeah, yeah, just that, and some of y'all need to pivot. So I love y'all. Don't forget, man. We're gonna continue to grow. We want you to grow with us. Get around the fire. Paralyzed to Prosperous podcast. Make sure you share it, share it, share it. Subscribe for those individuals that you believe need this word. Send them the link, and I'll see you on top, man. Because God's gonna continue to provide for all of us. All right, love y'all.
All right,
Peace.
love y'all, man.
Bye,
See y'all
guys.
later.